Hey, folks, we're back on the B block and we're talking about, well, what's real and what's not real here with these AI coding tools for developers. I mean, clearly there are advances that are being made, but there's always this kind of hype cycle around this stuff. And you hear people talking about, well, we won't need developers. Developers won't need the code. They'll just review code and we'll get rid of most of the developers and we'll only have architects from here. And there's all kinds of noise in the system all over the place. So we have this article, and it's a moment in time, and it basically outlines what actually works and what may not work so well. And one of the things that works well is anything to do with project management, and it will definitely generate code. But a lot of that code may not know enough about the environment it's going to run in, so it lacks a lot of context. So human developers might have to go in there and tweak it and make it work for that environment. But then again, they didn't write it in the first place, so they didn't know how it works. So now they're feeling, well, maybe I should have just wrote this whole thing from the ground up myself. Alan, you hear all the same noises I hear. What's real in your mind here, and where are we on this journey?
You know, I would say we're still at the beginning of the beginning, not even at the end of the beginning when it comes to AI generated code. Eh, And what I find interesting, Mike, is the proficiency of AI generated code and the progression wave of how it's getting better. I think closely mimics the progression wave of AI generated text writing. Right? When AI first came out, it was very easy to spot something that was written by AI. It had it was cold, it was easy to spot. It's gotten much harder, though I think it's still, for instance, I think this article on DevOps was AI assisted, let's call it. I think it's the same thing with code. The latest version of Claude, what did they call it? Claude Code or something like this, is supposed to be much, much better at generating usable code. For the foreseeable future, and when we're talking in text, foreseeable future, 6 months, right? 12 months at the most, I think AI generated code is still a question of having a co-pilot in the co-pilot chair next to you. I don't think, except for the most rudimentary kind of apps that you could probably do in no code today anyway, you would be relying on AI generated code for the majority, for the heavy lift, right? I just don't think it's there yet.
It seems like these things get better in leaps, right? Every 6 months or so, there seems to be a leap forward. And Terry, I want to get your opinion on something here because somebody was telling me this morning. He said, the leap that we saw at the beginning of this year, the tools actually recognize, SQL injection vulnerabilities, which has been the number one flaw since for a decade now. And they were saying, hey, we might get to a point soon where that's no longer going to be an issue because AI coding tools will actually not generate those types of vulnerabilities. However, they will generate other types of vulnerabilities.
Therein lies the problem because I think that's right. I've heard that as well. These tools are going to, really spot the security issues or some things, the SQL injection being one, but and that'll be good for security, right? But it's still can be used equally for bad, I think. And there are going to be some things that are missed, and this vulnerable code will be repeated. I mean, there are still all of those issues. I think what it's really super good for is putting it up for review. Putting your code up for review and seeing if there are any issues there. But I think, Alan, you're kind of right. It has to be there, as a co-pilot, right? Because there has to be this human oversight and this monitoring. Otherwise, I think it could be a disaster as far as security is concerned.
And security is, though security, I always preach that security should be synonymous with quality. there are other quality issues beyond security with AI generated code. Is it the most resource efficient code, right? Is it run like a pig or is it really optimized? Now, one may say that a great use of AI is having the human write the code and maybe asking the AI to optimize it, right? And maybe that's switching seats. But there's a lot we could do. But Mike, to your point and what I was saying off the top is, look, this is progressing. This is multiplying faster than triples on Star Trek. And you know, 9 months from now, who knows how good? A year from now, a year and a half from now, this we will be eating our words. But as we look today, this is, I think, the state of the art.
There is an interesting generational divide starting to emerge where the younger developers are saying, well, this is great. It makes me more productive and I can create stuff. And I think that appeals to maybe the senior level business executives because they hear that that means that I can use developers with less experience. But the older developers are saying, conversely, this is great because I don't need any junior developers running around because I can use AI to do all this stuff and that they will be the primary beneficiaries thereof. And they will become more efficient and it will be just harder than ever for your junior developers to break into the field in the first place because junior developers don't know anything about how that app runs in, say, a retail environment or financial services or whatever it is. I don't know how much of this is kind of, just old guard versus new guard, but it's an interesting conversation that's being had
Well,
out there.
yeah, and then where does that, I mean, you have to think beyond that a little bit. Where does that put younger developers later on in terms of their trajectory, to develop? I mean, if all of this stuff, they're being replaced at sort of the lower levels even, then we're not really developing a cadre of developers that have the expertise and can move forward, you know?
Well, I call this the reverse Logan's run. Speaking of generational gaps, Mike, I thought you would make reference to my Star Trek reference, but it's a reverse Logan's run, right? If we kill everyone when they're 30, we don't have any people over 30. and yeah, and it's the same thing. If we don't have junior developers cutting their teeth, we don't, eventually when those senior developers run out, you don't have anyone taking their place other than maybe the AI. Okay, so that will be a lost art.
And maybe not one that we should lose. I mean, there's some things that, if you lose them.
I absolutely agree. We shouldn't lose it, but are we destined for the servo chairs in Wall-E, whatever the movie was?
I don't know. I'm concerned about that. I also get concerned about, and this is going to really make me sound like an old fogey out there somewhere. I get concerned about developers who then come up in sort of this newer environment and they don't have that sort of experience of way back when the environment was locked down and, things were done a certain way and with a lot of attention to, I guess, security, as maybe more than today. But I do worry about that.
But so guys, let me just say this though. We've been doing Tech Strong Gang now for, is it 18 months? Something like that. And we've been talking about AI for at least that long, at Tech Strong. And we've been having the same conversation. Is AI good at coding? Is AI going to replace my coders? Is AI,
in terms of any type of content creation, will it replace whomever, not just coders, but writers, editors,
TV, video hosts,
editors? Yes,
could be. Am I real or am I an AI? But and we've seen progress, as you say, Mike, leaps and bounds in progress. I mean, I don't even think it's every 6 months. I think it's every couple of weeks. With every new release of one of these AIs, they do better. Do you still, at some point though, does that progression graph curve flatten out, right? Where we can't make further improvements without some hot new chip. I mean, is there like a Moore's law kind of thing here where it continues on that upward trajectory? Man, if I knew the answer to that, I probably wouldn't be doing this. But I think that's really the issue, not a question of where we are today, but how fast tomorrow comes.
Yeah. And I just feel like right now, too much of this conversation is wrapped around the fear factor. And everybody's trying to kind of, and I don't know, you read stuff in the Times and they'll say, the C-level execs are trying to use AI as a boogeyman to, whip the labor force into line. Others would say, the fact of the matter is that it's the labor force that may benefit most because a lot of that toil that wears them out and kind of makes them cranky at the end of the day might get eliminated. But, it's not to the point where
some of their jobs.
Right.
Some of the jobs, the caveat is, but there'll be better jobs. So there will be better jobs. I don't know what they'll be, but there'll be better jobs. But here's the thing. You want to know the truth? None of that matters. None of that matters because we live in a market-driven economy, in a market-driven system. And if someone could do it better, faster, cheaper, they will. In spite of what the voters in New York City may think, right? We're not communists. We're not even socialists. If someone could do it, if I could use something to do it better, faster, cheaper, I will, and the market will reward me. That's the bottom line. So we could wring our hands and woe is me all we want, but that's the realities of the market. Fair?
I would say that it's fair. I just don't think it's going to reach a point where it does not require some sort of human supervision oversight anytime soon.
It shouldn't reach that point.
They said the same thing about driving cars.
Of which, most people are not driving self-driving cars for a reason.
I just remember the reference to yesterday's show about the robo-taxis. But anyway, we shall see. We shall see.
As I look out my window, I do not see any self-driving cars going by right now.
I know, but 3-4 generations.
They're in San Francisco, Austin, and Phoenix. Yeah.
3 or 4 generations ago, Mike, your grandpa or great-grandpa looked out the window and said, I don't see any horseless carriages.
No.
So, I mean, there is that.
And if he did, he yelled out the window and told the guy to get a horse.
Well, that was I saw a meme on this recently, right? A guy telling a horse, don't worry, something's going to have to pull these carriages, that we weren't going to replace the horse after all.
I think the horse might like to be replaced, to be honest with you. It must get awfully tiresome pulling those carriages.
Absolutely. Anyway, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back here on Block C for the Tech Strong Gang. Good conversation. You're watching Tech Strong Gang.